Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Father Michael Revac, the pastor at St. Mary Magdalene Catholic Church in Noonan, Georgia, and you're watching Essentials. When John saw Jesus, he said to his apostles, "Behold the Lamb of God." When we get to communion at Mass, the priest holds up the host and he says, "Behold the Lamb of God." The same words that John says to his disciples to get them to follow Jesus. What happens in the middle there for us to understand what John means when he says, "Behold the Lamb of God," and why can we be convinced that when the priest holds up the host before the communion rite, that we are in fact beholding the Lamb of God? So let's talk about Jesus as the Lamb of God. So the first thing we need to do is take the lamb, right? We need to recognize that the lamb was the ordinary sacrifice that the Jews would use at the Passover feast to slaughter, as it was instituted by Moses, and then use the blood to make atonement so that the destroying angel, the angel of death, which comes because of sin, would pass over them. Now, in the Jewish understanding, this didn't undo sin. It didn't break sin. It just allowed them for one more year, to be passed over on the debt. Basically, God wouldn't collect the debt of sin through death that year, right? Because they followed the institution of the Passover. That's what the lamb did. The lamb appeased, or sort of set God back another year as this sort of atonement came to fruition. Now, Jesus is going to be the Lamb of God because he's going to be the one that is sacrificed for the same reason and in the same way, effectively, that the Lamb of Passover was sacrificed. Jesus is going to be nailed to a cross. He's going to be sacrificed. He's the unblemished Lamb. He's perfect, right? He's been prepared for this sacrifice. And the effect of the sacrifice of Jesus offering his lifeblood is going to be not only what a lamb, like the actual lamb, could do, which is to just set God back a year, appease God, this vengeful God, for a little bit. It actually breaks sin so that it doesn't have the effect anymore, and that the ransom, the payment, the debt that is owed God because of sin is effectively paid, and we are no longer under the debt of sin. This is a radical different understanding, or a different accomplishment, a different task that was accomplished than what the original lambs of the Passover feast did. This is, therefore, the true Lamb of God, because he accomplishes what God has wanted for Adam and the sons of Adam since the fall: a restoration. This is what God has been leading up to through the Old Testament sacrifices, really first with Abraham, and then forward with the institution of the Passover at Moses. Now that comes to a radically new, a metamorphosis of effect, where it's not just symbolic and it's not just a temporary reprieve, but it is in fact an undoing of the curse of sin, a breaking of the power of Satan. Now, Jesus allows for his sacrifice to take place. He is the lamb, like Isaac, a willing sacrifice to be sacrificed. But it really starts one day before, at the feast of what we call the Last Supper on Holy Thursday. In the temple area on Thursday evening, the lambs for sacrifice that would be sacrificed on Good Friday, what we call Good Friday, were being prepared. They were being made ready for the sacrifice. Jesus is doing the same thing. He's making himself ready for the sacrifice, and he's getting his apostles ready to continue what he does. "What I do for you, you do not understand now, but you soon will," he says after he washes their feet. On the night before he was betrayed, he took bread and he said, "Take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body." Now, why is that significant? Because it's the Passover feast, and you have to eat of the lamb sacrificed in order for death to pass over you. But at that Passover feast, there was no lamb, kind of lamb. That was a terrible lamb impression. There was no Passover lamb, but the Christ, who was already called by John the Lamb of God. And so the apostles needed to fulfill what Jesus said in the synagogue in John 6, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life within you. How do they do that then? Jesus has the answer. He takes bread and he says, take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body. Do this in memory of me. Now, he's given them the commission to perpetuate the sacrifice that he is going to offer on Good Friday through the institution of the Eucharist that we celebrate at Mass. So that that one sacrifice made by Jesus on the cross could be represented, could be perpetuated, elongated, stretched out through time and space, so that this morning at St. Mary Magdalene, when I took bread and said, take this, all of you, and eat it, this is my body, I could do that because Jesus told his apostles they could do that, and they told me that I could do it effectively, right? Take this, all of you, and eat it, this is my body. So that when I raise up the chalice and I raise up the host and I said, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, we can know for sure through the eyes of faith, where St. Thomas says in his great Eucharistic hymn, faith for all defects supplying where the feeble senses fail. We can see and we can know for sure because John said it, because Jesus said it, and because every Christian generation after Jesus has done it. Take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body. Behold, this is the Lamb of God, broken, sacrificed, offered on the cross for you, so that sins might be forgiven. And we say, Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof. Like the lamb whose blood anoints the lintels and the doorposts of the Israelite people, so that death might pass over. But only say the word and I shall be healed. Echoing the words of that centurion who shows, though he was a Gentile, showed faith enough in Jesus that his request was answered without Jesus even having to go. So guys, this is what it means for Jesus to be the Lamb. This is what it means practically for us to enter into the sacrifice that was offered so many years ago, so many centuries, millennia ago, on that fateful night that we call Holy Thursday at the Last Supper. Jesus, the Lamb of God, gives himself to us not only in sacrifice, but in that sacrifice through time and space, the institution of the priesthood, the institution of the Eucharist, and our ability to access it through our daily bread in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Behold, guys, Jesus is the Lamb of God, and he has taken away the sins of the world. Thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you next time.